Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our Capitol Hill Alphabet Animal Art Project Artist Roundtable. I think I got all of the words in there. We're so appreciative, so thrilled that you are all here. A big thank you, first of all, to our artists who are here today, who have done just such incredible work. We were talking about this a little bit before we opened up the room to everyone. But this has been a project that started, well, the first iteration started in 2011, so it's been almost 10 years, and that one went up in 2014. And this version started last year, and then COVID hit, and no one knew what was going to happen. And through truly the flexibility, the creativity, the ingenuity of all of the artists on here, and those who are not joining tonight, but who have created animals, it is thanks to all of them and our partners at the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities and the DC Department of Transportation that we've really been able to have this come through and have these wonderful, joyful pieces that are now out in the world. And that's, I think, where I'd really like to start. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here to now I'm going to share my screen. There we go.
There you go.
Here we are. So now you can see this this lovely map, I hope, here. We have...
you might want to do it in hit your slideshow, view slideshow.
I will try that. The last time, oh, perfect. Okay. The last time I tried that while I was it destroyed everything. So I'm glad that you can all see it still?
Yes.
Amazing. Okay. Well, fabulous. Thank you. So hopefully you can see here, we have our map of animals. You can see the new ones are these darker diamonds, 11 through 20, but you can also see the original 10. So you can see that we've really bubbled out from these original 10 all the way out through the neighborhood, and so thrilled to be able to see how far we've come and how large the project has become since we started. So as a just quick rundown of the beginning, as I mentioned, this is a project that started in 2011 through the Capitol Hill Arts Workshop, and this time with support from the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities and the Capitol Hill Community Foundation. Back in 2011, we worked on this through a father who was in the neighborhood who was walking with his two children and said, "Oh, look, we're on E Street, E is for elephant," or "Look, we're on G Street, G is for grasshopper." And he thought this would be a really great idea to do and brought it to Cha. And of course, Cha said, "Yes, that is a great idea. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. Let's put animals up on the street signs." And through a partnership with the DC Department of Transportation, we did these first 10 animals. This is a really great memory of a time when we could be in person together. This was actually Halloween in 2014, so it's especially meaningful that we are doing this roundtable near Halloween, because that's when we had our first kickoff and had our grasshopper naming. The winning name was Chomper, so that's how I always know our wonderful grasshopper by Carolina Mayorga, who's here with us tonight with a new insect.
It was, remember, Hannah, it was a contest. We asked people from the neighborhood to come up with names, and Chomper was the winner.
It was. I loved it. And we had a whole signboard, as I recall, and people could come and stick up little their ideas of the best name. Just letting a few more people in here. Wonderful. So now I just want to go ahead and run through the animals so you can all see them. And so the artists, you can all see each other's as well. And then I'm going to take this down. We'll go back into the Zoom show, but if anyone would like me to pull it back up, or if an artist while you're talking you'd like me to pull it back up, I'm happy to do that. So
Cuando ustedes hagan la conciliación, después de que hagan el cierre, a mí.
Yay!
So here we've got our turtle by the artist team of Breon Gillerin and Mimi Frank. Mimi is here with us tonight. And we've got monkeys by Undine Broad, who is also here with us tonight. Our penguin by Evan Reed.
要听5分钟吗？
I'm just going to go ahead and ask
那就
everyone to mute. Wonderful. We've got our penguin, and I think we'll also be doing a naming contest for the penguin, which is very exciting. Our horse, True Crab, by Sue Champeny, who is here tonight. Lots of fun process photos. And another photo from right before the pandemic, actually, here at CHA. Our Honeybee by Maureen Smith, who's here tonight. Or Wood Thrush, Wandering Washington by Charles Bergen. Sneaky Cat by Davide Prete. Awesome Anteater by Beth Baldwin. And of course, Across the Street, Embellished Neighbor, Ant by Carolina Mayorga. And some more really fantastic process. Bunny, also by Breon Gillerin and Mimi Frank. Wonderful, sparkly animals, and a place where you can visit online, which we will get to later. So I am now at this point going to pass this off to our wonderful facilitator this evening. Her name is Kate Fleming, and I am thrilled to introduce her. I'm especially excited because Kate and I met years ago through CHA, through the residency program. And I am really excited to be able to introduce her tonight. It's so much better when an artist can facilitate an artist conversation. So happy to have you with us. Thank you so much, Kate, for being here. Kate Fleming is a painter, printmaker, and installation artist based in her hometown of Arlington, Virginia. Kate has been a part of the CHA community since 2018, when she was the gallery resident, and then went on to design and produce the set for Taffety Punk Theater Company's production of Pram Kicker later that year. She and her partner, photographer Tom Woodruff, created the 50 States Project, a mobile artist residency traveling to all 50 states in partnership with CHA. From November 2019 to March 2020, Kate and Tom painted and photographed in 17 states while living in a camper van before returning home due to COVID-19. The pandemic has put their travel plans on hold, but the project continues from home until it is safe to get back on the road. So, Kate, I am thrilled to pass it over to you. I realized as I started this, I didn't introduce myself, so I'm going to do that really quickly so you can all know who I am before I pass it off to Kate. I'm Hannah Jacobson Blumenfeld. I'm the project manager for this wonderful project. On to you, Kate, and artists, if you'd like to introduce yourselves in a somewhat more robust manner than my quick run through as I went through your animals, please do so. And Kate, over to you.
Thank you for that fabulous introduction, Hannah. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm really looking forward to talking with all these artists. I've heard of many of you, if not all of you, and met some of you, and I'm just really eager to learn about your process. So I'm happy to be here. I think it would be great if the artists that are here could maybe introduce themselves briefly, just so we can sort of call out. I have the big gallery view up, as I assume most people do. It'd be good, I think, to call out who's here artist-wise. So Hannah, do you want to maybe do a little roll call here, since you know who everybody is, real quick?
Absolutely, happy to do that. I'm just going to go by where you are on my screen. So Maureen, if you want to start.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Great. My name is Maureen. I lived in DC during the time of the creating of my alphabet animal, but I now live in Maryland, and I created the honeybee sculpture, which is at Bay Street and 17th Street.
Awesome. Thanks, Maureen. Sue, you are up next.
I'm Sue Champeny, and along with my sister Lee Bears, who's also here, we created the horseshoe crab for H Street and 16th. It's my second alphabet animal. I was actually part of the original project. And I have a dual art practice in Worcester, Massachusetts and Hilo, Hawaii, though currently it's Hilo, Hawaii because I'm not traveling back and forth. So the horseshoe crab actually was started in New Hampshire. The prototypes were built in Hawaii. Then I took everything to Pennsylvania to my sister so we could build it in metal. And then we drove it to DC, I think 3 days before shutdown. So it's a pretty wild ride. And I know we've all done a lot of pretty crazy stuff this last while.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here. And thank you, Lee, for joining us as well. Undine, I will hop over to you.
Hi, I'm Undine Broad. I'm located in Rhinebeck, New York, which is a few hours north of the city. I too have a first round also. The first round I have narwhals on, and I have monkeys now on this round. So I guess I feel like I have multiple animals because they all have their own pods and their own little families, like a monkeys in the tree. And for me, this project was really exciting, very different from my usual practice because I normally create ambiguous animals that aren't specific to any one breed. So this is very unusual for me to have specific animals that are recognizable and identifiable. So anyway, I'm really grateful to be part of this program. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Undine. Carolina.
All right, everybody. I'm Carolina Mayorga. I was also part of the first round of these projects. Mine is the chomper, the grasshopper sitting diagonally from Cho. I've been connected to Cho for, oh my gosh, almost, this is gonna be my 16th year. I'm a teaching artist there. And so we've done all sorts of programs with Hannah and Amy. So Cho is definitely my home, and I'm so happy to be back with my pink ant on 7th and 8th, right? And then, thank you. And then, and yeah, it's there for everybody to see it. And yeah, originally from Colombia, but in Washington D.C. for almost 20 years. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next, we have Mimi.
This is my first time, although my collaborator, Brian, had done the spider web first. And she said, why don't we collaborate on a work? Because we've been wanting to collaborate on something for, I guess, a couple of years on and off. Anyway, so she invited me, and then another opening. So we each got to do one. And I'm from Maryland. This is not usually the way I work, but it was really fun. And I hope I get a chance to explain kind of the way it evolved. So, it was also challenging. It was interesting how our resolution came about for not only with the COVID and all that, but it seemed to come together. It made us do things we wouldn't normally do. It was fun. It was definitely fun.
Well, I think we're all probably intrigued now about that, so I'm sure we will circle back. And it looks like Charles is here. Charles, are you with us?
Hi, yeah, I'm driving. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have my video on, but I'm trying to ignore yours. So I'm
Oops.
the Capitalosaurus, and then for the second, which is the bird, Washington bird, and Washington D.C. bird, and it's I think it's rare rather than endangered. They nest on the ground, and so a lot of their habitat has been lost. So that's the one that I did, and I'm trained as an architect as well, and I have to admit that at the end of June I fled the public art scene and went back to working as an architect, just because it made a lot more sense financially with the downturn. So, but it's neat to see all the different pieces, and it's really neat to see the people who created them. And it's always like, because I always try and guess what that person is like, and it's really neat, and just the variety of creativity is really fantastic to see. So.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, Charles, even while driving. And just before we jump into things, I wanted to make a quick mention that the CHA Executive Director, Amy Moore, is on, and I wanted to also thank our board members who are on tonight, Maria Conticelli and Kim Langenhen. Thank you for being here. And I know that all of you are fantastic and important supporters of CHA, which we will thank you for again and again and always for supporting the arts. And hope you enjoy tonight. Thanks for being here. Kate, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Hannah, because I've heard all the names, but it's hard for me to look at the screen and pick you all out. So I'm glad I know who everyone is and where everyone is now, and I'm excited to be talking with you. So I think to start, I think we need to get it out of the way. The question of how did you pick your animals, which I'm sure that's what everybody asks as their first question, and maybe you have a good answer and maybe you don't. And that's fine. But I also am curious, and that was the first thing that I asked Hannah, and she was like, I'm not going to answer that. I'm gonna let the artist answer that. So does anybody specifically want to speak to that?
I'm happy to speak to that, because for the first round, it was actually really challenging for me, because I don't know if anyone here can off the top of their head come up with an N animal. There aren't that many that aren't specific, like a Newfoundland dog or a newt, or you had to get really specific with the species to actually come up with something with an N. And so I had to ask other people. And I remember newt and narwhal were the two I got. And I really knew very little about narwhals. And that's what I chose, because like I said earlier, I don't normally do representational, realistic animals. So I knew that it would have that very distinct tusk, and people would be able to call it out if they even knew that narwhals were real. So.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting that you say that you work with sort of less representational things, and then narwhal is such a borderline fantastical creature in some ways, and also a creature that we know very little about. So it seems somehow aligned with your practice even still.
And then for the monkeys, there are, I think, several more animals you could call out with an M, but it felt appropriate to me because I wanted, again, to have a cluster of them, since I was working with clay and they would be smaller. And I thought of how, the chimpanzees and primates will often hang out in trees, and I saw the pole as tree-like. And I did have a family member point out that in the political climate, it seemed very appropriate also to have a bunch of monkey heads out there. So
I can see that. I can definitely see that. Wow, that's fantastic to get such insight into your process. So I guess every artist got to choose for themselves, right? Wow, so that's so interesting. I'm also really interested, Sue, in how you picked a horseshoe crab, since that's sort of a specific creature. Maybe it has to do with the letter H. We were also having a hard time. I'm curious, where did that come from?
Well, it sort of springs from the ladybug that I did before. Originally, in the first project, I wanted S for snake because I'm Sue. S wasn't on the board. So I went, what else can I do? And I saw L, and I instantly envisioned a ladybug. Now, I happen to have a red plastic snow saucer, so that influenced where I went, because I work with recycled plastics. So the red snow saucer is still there. It's now a light pink, because eventually colors fade in the world.
Right.
So when it came to the horseshoe crab, I was a little bit more prepared. I looked at the alphabet list, and the first letter I saw was H, and I knew I wanted to work with it. The only thing I didn't know was if I wanted to go for horse, for the horses of Chincoteague and Assateague, which I love, I've loved since I was a little girl, or the horseshoe crab, which more represents the whole Chesapeake Bay area. And I have also loved horseshoe crabs since I was a small child and picked them up on the beach. And after playing around with some prototypes, I realized I could do a horse, but it would look like the outline of the Mustang logo or something like that. Not too interesting. Been done before, unless I did it in neon or something like that. And so I started messing around with a cereal box. And within about 10 minutes came up with the prototype for my horseshoe crab out of bent cardboard. I went, well, bent cardboard is not going to last. I could varnish it. It could probably last a few years, but 5 or 10, no. And so I decided I would just switch materials totally and move to aluminum, which I have not bent aluminum since I was in high school, but I rediscovered that I absolutely love working with aluminum. It's a fantastic metal. And luckily my sister's workshop had every tool imaginable because it was far more complex than bending a cereal box. I can tell you that. I think my sister and I worked about 13 days straight to create the final. And when we left Washington, D.C., we went back to my sister's house and we built a second one in 48 hours. So we had learned a lot in the process. So there is a backup crab because I'm well aware that you sort of need a insurance policy for these pieces. Some of them have disappeared over time. And my simplest insurance policy was to have a duplicate on hand, which still is in Pittsburgh. So that's how I selected it. And I love horseshoe crabs. To walk into Chaw that day that we delivered the crab and watch all the little 5th graders come running up and go, a little boy put his hands on it and went, horseshoe crab, I love them. That's my favorite creature. And I knew I'd done my job.
Yeah, that's just exactly what you want to hear when you've made something, for someone to have such a reaction like that. And they are such a special creature too, and so instantly recognizable. You also seem like you have sort of a connection to the coast in some way between Hilo and Massachusetts, although I guess you're more inland in Massachusetts, right? But it seems like you have a connection to the coast. So it doesn't altogether surprise me that you picked a horseshoe crab.
I think all things water. I mean, right now in Hilo, I'm about 500 feet from the water, which was not where I ever expected to be. But
go ahead, make us more jealous.
It's pretty stunning. I traded up from lava zone 2 to tsunami zone 1. So I might lose this place too, but I've been through that before, so it's okay.
Wow, let's hope not. I hope that you'll be safe and your place will be safe. Does anybody else want to speak to their selection process for their animal?
I could add something really quick. Undine was am I pronouncing your name right? You were mentioning that you're not familiar. I mean, it's not your game to work with this kind of representation. Actually, I'm the opposite. I love these, and it's been a thing with insects. If you Hannah knows, and Kate has seen some of it. Insects is my thing. So definitely the ant was like A for ant, and I actually done projects with ants before, projections with infestation of ants. So I said, let's do my pink ant. That was pretty appropriate for the project. So yeah, I had that in mind.
Right? Your Chaw residency project in the gallery space was all pink ants too, right?
It was a fly.
Oh, flies. That's right. That's right. It was the life cycle of the fly. So was that project before or after the ant?
It was after, because the first time I did a project with the ants was like 2010 or something. I did an installation with a bunch of little vinyl sticky ants. I put them up in Artisphere, that place that used to be in Arlington with the dome. I put up like 1,500 of them all over the building. And then we did a projection on the outside of the dome. I made like an animation with an infestation of ants on the dome of that. So I've been doing projects with them before, and then I did the project at Show, which was a part of the first residency. I did the first one, and so I made a project with a fly. It was a pink fly. I did that big drawing, which has been my biggest drawing. I'm not. I don't go as big as you, Kate. I don't have the courage, but I'm getting there.
Oh, you can do it, Carolina. If I can do it, you can do it.
And so, yeah, it was a whole project on it was called Life of a Fly in a Show or something. So it was the whole process. It involved drawing, installation, video, and it was all the life of a fly at Capitol Hill Arts Workshop. So, yeah. And that was after the ants. And then I always revisit all these animals.
I was just going to say, you have such a distinct aesthetic between the pink and the insects. It's like, when you see Carolina's work. I had the chance to visit Megan Cheek in Alabama, and she has one of your drawings on the wall, and I just looked at it and I was like, okay, that's a Carolina Mayorga. I know for sure. You have strong aesthetic.
I just get obsessed with the same thing over and over. We kind of like all artists, we all have that. You just get obsessed. And then you can't you repeat yourself over and over again.
I love that. Okay, anybody else wanna, there's a couple artists we haven't heard from yet. Does anybody want to speak to their choice of animal or their process?
Oh yeah, I'll do it.
Go for it.
My collaborator reached out to me because I had done a bunny that she loved. So she said, let's do a bunny. And then I guess Hannah just said, there's two of you, and I think you had an opening or something, letter T. So I basically just went with first thing that came to my mind, which was turtle. So I mean, I hate to be all crazy about it, but are we supposed? I could go on. You want me to go on?
Yeah, I'm so interested in your process. I mean, not just about how you selected, because I think your answer is as good as any. When Hannah and I were talking before, and we were getting ready for this event, we were talking about how people select things. And, I've been doing this project where I'm traveling around 50 states, and people ask me every single time without fail, how do you decide where you're going to go in each state? And I don't have a good answer. It's kind of like, it's like, I don't know. First thing
yeah, it's almost like instinct. So we were going to do these very nice, the piece I had that she had in mind was a very nice, I do welding, I mostly weld. It was a welded steel bunny, and it was really cute. But when we calculated how heavy that was going to be up there and I said, it's going to have to be that big, and it's like 15, 20 feet up. So we went back to the drawing board, and then we had a discussion, and I said, it's signs. These are signs. So I kind of went into a skewed sort of towards semiotics. I don't know if anybody's into that, but semiotics without the end product. So it's like, a semiotics is like, there's a stop sign. You don't need to read it. You know what it is. So the bunny is just this thing that's up there. My goal was to just have this thing that's like, that's a freaking bunny, but why is it up there? And that's just what I wanted it to be, is like, it must mean something, as in semiotics, but it doesn't really mean anything. So that is kind of, but it was really important to us for it to be as large as we could make it. So we kind of calculated how big it could be without weighing too much. And then also just be obnoxious, like it's pink and it's shiny and sparkly, so that someone would go, a pink bunny, what's that doing up there? And that was really what it was to be. And it kind of competing with all those signs. I looked at some of the posts, and it was like, man, there's like, this way and that and a corner and that, and then a big pink bunny. And I was like, this is going to be good. So it was kind of just a little levity, like, what the heck is that doing there? And the turtle was sort of the same way too. It was like, what is that turtle doing? And Brianne was a total like sparkly paint finish. So that was her thing. And we did have them done. We found that powder coating was like the best. It lasts forever. So we just went with this whole process, and it was super fun. A lot of back and forth between she and I. It was a fun process for us.
I love that. That's something such to take into account with a project like this. There are so many factors. it's outdoors, and not only is it outdoors, but it's on a signpost and it's up high, which is
you don't
far
want to kill
away.
anybody when it falls down, and stuff like that.
And how are you going to attach it, and how is it going to compete with everything around it?
Right.
And how will it be red against the sky and all those things? That's interesting when you talk about sort of simplifying it to its essential elements, sort of, so it can be read almost like a stop sign so quickly. I love that.
Yeah, you get it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Maureen, I'd really love to hear from you about your process too, and also because Hannah had mentioned to me that the way that you worked on this piece was different from your regular practice, and I've seen your photography work before, so I'm really interested in how your piece came to be as a whole.
Yeah, so I primarily don't work three-dimensionally. I did probably 4 years ago, when I was still in school for art, and I was doing like 3D work every single day. So this was a lot of fun for me. It was really awesome to get to work with, to work three-dimensionally again. I missed it a lot, and I didn't realize that until I got really deep into the project. And I think my favorite part about the process was just the problem solving and going through the motions and thinking about all of the different variables of where it was going to be and how it was going to interact with its surroundings. I primarily chose the honeybee because bees are super symbolic. They mean all sorts of things to different people, and they're also super important to our ecosystem. And yeah, I really had a very straightforward approach to how it was going to look, just because I thought that the most important thing was for it to have that immediate impact when folks saw it. But similarly, I really like the sort of shock and awe value. I know that when they were first installed, folks in the community were like, what is this? And so that initial intrigue just felt like such a breath of fresh air, I think, for a lot of folks. And people were, at that point, I think people were primarily spending some time outside because it was the only real thing to do safely, socially distant time outside. And so thinking about how when it was installed, that being the case, for me, it was all about just creating something that was going to bring people some joy, with that underlying meaning of bees being super important to our ecosystems. Yeah.
Good.
I love that. That's, I think these works, they do bring a lot of joy. I think that's something that, although they're in many different media and of different subjects and different colors and different styles, they all have this really joyful spirit to them, which is sort of, very in line with Chaw, I think. And maybe that's sort of what ties the whole project together and this group of artists together is Chaw, and that's sort of the Chaw magic and the Chaw joy, and I love that. I'm also curious, Maureen, how did you make your piece, and what materials did you end up using, and was that a new thing for you, or was it something you had used in school, or how did that work?
So I used aluminum as well, which I actually really love too. It's just a super forgiving material. And also sheet metal. And I found some really great aluminum that was semi-flexible and also had a pattern to it, which made great use for almost iridescent wings, so that when it was going to be on the lamppost, you could kind of see through the wings into the sky, which I was really into. And it was different for me. In school, I primarily was working with ceramics. I worked a lot with cardboard, and a little bit with stone, but not with metal. So this was a new challenge for me to take on.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've never worked with metal before, and that's, I love that there's this sort of project that comes your way that's sort of, you know, a big thing. It's going to be on the street. It's public art. And you just like dive right into a new media that you haven't used before. I love that. That's so bold. I'm also really interested, Undine, you mentioned that you used ceramics for yours. Can you speak a little bit more about that process? And is there ceramic up there right now? And how is it sitting there?
My background and my primary area of study is ceramics, working with clay. I do tend to use mixed media as well. I'm very much a non-traditional ceramic builder. I definitely think work in 3D of all media. And what is up there for the monkeys is 100% clay, except for the clamps, the clips that attach it to the pole. And for the narwhals, it's clay also with a twisted nail for the tusk. And I did tests with the, when I got the narwhal, I did several tests because, I mean, clay is a material that's outside. Depending on what kind of clay it is, it can hold up to the weather. You have to determine, you have to find out like what environment it's going to sustain. Like you wouldn't necessarily do porcelain for outdoor sculptures, but actually porcelain would hold up really well outdoors. So with the narwhals, I had done several tests where I actually made smaller narwhals and then I soaked them in water. I put them in the freezer because water expands. So I would see if it cracked. And I did the same tests with the epoxies I used to attach the binding clip to the ceramic material. And because you can read a label on an adhesive and it can say it can withstand whatever it withstands, but I tend to not always trust that.
I think that's so smart that you did that.
And so the monkeys, I think also both the monkeys and then the narwhals were so long ago. I think I used a boat sealant. So like I can't remember if it was a water-based, but it is basically a sealant that you would put on boat bottoms to just further protect and keep the moisture out. They should last. I mean, I was honestly pretty worried about like if people would try to vandalize things. Like I was worried like that I was using clay and things, people, who knows what could happen, but I didn't have I have done metalwork. If anyone looks at my website, you can see I have experience with all kinds of materials. I just don't always have access to it. And also wanting to stay within the budget, our material budget, was important to me as well. So,
of course, I mean, all those constraints are, I don't know. I personally really like working with constraints because it sort of forces you to be creative in a certain way. And a project like this has all these sort of like challenges of it needs to last, it needs to hold up to the elements, it needs to sort of do this and that and compete with these things and be large and be read from far away. And for me, that's such like an interesting creative space to work in because there's all this like creative problem solving, which sounds like you all tackled in really interesting and different ways.
Right. Yeah, like I said, I was really kind of nervous because the original round, we got really specific weight requirement, and knowing that I work with clay and my process with working with clay also is I hand build, and my pieces usually end up being really thick. So the weight was heavy and we had, I can't remember, maybe it was like 7 pounds per clip we could use. And so that's also what motivated me to make a pod of narwhals and a group of monkeys, was that it needed to stand out, like Mimi said about all the signs and everything around it.
I love that. That's really interesting, all the sort of like technical things that come into play with a project like this. We haven't really heard much from Charles. Are you still there, Charles?
Yeah, I just got home.
Oh, excellent.
I just had a quick bite to eat, and I can turn on the video if you, I don't know where the video is. Anyway.
Great. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit about.
So my pieces, the first one was the Capitalosaurus. That one actually, because I had to see, Falcarius, a Capitalosaurus chasing a Falcarius. And so I had F to deal with, and I looked at fox and fowl and falcon, and it really didn't make sense. And also you have this sort of very geometric light pole, and so I went with this sort of this frame and this sort of this whole scene that I depicted of the Capylosaurus chasing the Falcarius, which are two real dinosaurs. But obviously, who knows if this event ever happened? So it's sort of silly, but it's historical, and it might be about the politicians in the Capitol chasing each other, and it's funny. It's very specific to Washington, but I've gotten people people in Williamsburg, the Williamsburg Art Group, and people in Macon, Georgia, bought the piece, and it's in their public art collections. And then the current piece, which is the wood thrush, I also tried to do something very like a Washington specific animal, which is the wood thrush. But I didn't have quite the humor that I did with the first one. But I did depict some wonderful buildings in Washington, which I enjoyed doing, and sort of a Washington tree scene. And these are water jet cut, and they're aluminum, and they don't weigh a lot. They're basically doubling the size of the green DC street signs.
So where did you produce these works? Do you have a studio with these tools?
Oh, no. A water jet table costs $100,000. So
you don't have one in your basement?
I don't have one in my basement. We rent out our basement, actually. But there's a firm in Winchester, Virginia called Fabritech, and they do very detailed work for the defense industry. And a water jet can cut through 8-inch steel, thick steel. So a 1/4-inch aluminum is easy to do. The Capylosaurus one, it's, as my wife calls it, it's the public art piece that keeps on giving, because I sold it twice after doing it for Chaw, and then it was that piece that got me the commission for the British Normandy Memorial Waymarkers, which are, they're 5 waymarkers, one for each beach. They were just installed in Normandy, France. And I have some pretty good photographs, which I can email around to the group. I haven't gotten the professional photographs yet.
Wow, so you're very familiar working with public art. Is that sort of your primary way of working?
It is, as an artist. But unfortunately, last year I only made $10,000. So I only netted $10,000. So this year I went back to working as an architect, and I just do the commissions that are easy to get. I don't spend a lot of time chasing stuff now.
Wow, and that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think that you're one of the few artists here that their primary working method is this public art, or am I wrong? Is anybody? Oh, Susan or Sue, you work public art a lot too, right?
Yeah, and like Charles, I don't make much money at it, but it's something that I'm passionate about, so I've made it a big part of my practice. The other half of my practice is teaching kids how to make anything out of anything, and which has saved my life this year, because I've been making little sculpture kits and shipping them to the East Coast, and it's been fantastic fun.
Oh, I love that.
I also want to put a plug in for thanking Chaw for having this as an opportunity, because public art is something I've wanted to branch into, and I've had several other pieces that are temporary, but as an artist it's really hard to apply for the bigger grant, the bigger budget opportunities, because they always want to see that you have a history of having successful outcomes. So this kind of public art project for me was really great to be able to access and apply for, because it's like a stepping stone. And I do hope to have larger, bigger budget public artworks out there in the future. And so like this experience with Chaw has been great. And like it says in my thing, I don't live in DC. And so I was really grateful. I don't even remember how I first heard about the first call, but had applied. I think it must have been on one of the many, many mailing lists I'm on for calls for art, because always seeking out opportunities. And so I really appreciate what I'm learning more and more about CHA. Even from this night, I'm like, I wish there was a CHA near me.
I wish there was a CHA everywhere in the world. You know, it's interesting what you say, because CHA has really done the same thing for me in sort of like taking a chance on an artist that doesn't necessarily have, you know, sort of me coming forward and being like, I want to do this project. I've never done anything like it before. And CHA being like, all right, let's do it. It's sort of what's so special about CHA, is that they're willing to take those risks on artists and help them build their practices in that way. I think that's so special about CHA.
That's why I've stuck with them for 16 years.
So I guess also, just because I know I have several people who aren't local to DC or even where I live here, CHA stands for Capitol Hill
Arts Workshop.
Arts Workshop. And it was, if I am correct, like 2 organizations, because isn't it the C? Oh no, it had such a long title at one point. Capitol Hill Animal Alphabet Art Project. CHA, with CHA. Right.
Classic CHA.
I would say.
Oh, go ahead, Charles.
I'll just be real quick. I would second what Undine is saying, and because it was my first, well, not my first public art piece, but my first recent public art piece, and it really got me started and noticed in DC, because it got picked up in the Washington Post, and it helped it got me other commissions, and it really was a stepping stone.
I love that. It's so special about CHA. I don't know. It's truly, I don't know. I think a lot of organizations and a lot of art spaces talk about a community, and CHA truly is a community in the truest sense. And even though it branches all across the country and sort of pulls all these people in and creates all these opportunities, and it's really special. And I'm so pleased to get to talk with so many of the other artists within the CHA sort of universe, because I see a lot of people in passing, of course, not anymore since none of us are in the building, but it's really special to have so many CHA artists gathered for one conversation. Hannah, how are we doing on time? Do we need to take some questions, or are we good, or where are we at?
Personally, I'm so delighted just listening to all of you chat. I say keep on going. I haven't seen any questions pop up in the chat, but I would invite anybody to unmute if you'd like, or throw a question in the chat. Otherwise, we'll leave it in your very capable hands, Kate.
Excellent. Okay, I did want to ask, and this is sort of for anyone, although I'd love to hear a little more from you, Mimi, maybe first, since we haven't talked to you too much. I'm really interested in how you all sort of have dealt with your work being out in the public. And I've done some mural projects myself, and I've had some vandalism on one of my projects, but only one, you know, amongst many. And people always ask me, oh, aren't you worried about graffiti, or aren't you worried about this or that? Or how do you personally sort of deal with that? Your work is just out there in the world, not only exposed to other people, but exposed to the elements and exposed to whatever, and just out there.
Well, this piece is actually different for me in that you can't touch it. It's up there. I do a lot of work that's like a bench or a chair with rocker, and I've used that process. It's similar to what Charles did with the, you get machine cut objects. And I don't know, I guess my stuff is heavy enough and nobody can, you know, I can hardly move it. I figured if someone moves that and takes it home, man, good for you, you know, but you know, and it's steel, and I guess if someone wants to spray paint it I mean, I haven't really had it. I've had some pieces out here in Montgomery County, you know, on display. Maybe we're just sort of a calm area. I've had them several different, I'm trying to think if I've ever had it, and I don't think you know, sorry. But it's thrilling actually to have someone come over, look at your work, and respond the way that you want. And a lot of mine is about engaging with other people and, you know, like 2 benches facing each other in a little house. And it has been a blast to have that. And I kind of am sad that I haven't been able to go down to Capitol Hill and just like, you know, wait for someone to walk by. They go, what the heck is that bunny up there for? You know, and I kind of wish, and I'm going to do it. I'm waiting for Brianne to like come free, and we're gonna go down there and hang out under our sculptures.
I love that. And you can just hang out and wait for someone to say something.
Yeah, like, oh, here comes one now, you know.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, for me, whenever I create something that's a public work, it's sort of like I make it, I put it out in the world, I take a finished photo of it, and then I say goodbye. And whatever happens to it from there on out is like, whatever, you know, it's been finished and it's been documented, and that's where it is. I'm interested though, do any other artists in the group have a different take, or Sue?
I've done a fair number of murals. I've never had one vandalized, but I've had the sites destroyed over time. So anytime I paint on a wall, I know that, especially outdoors, it is temporary. It might be 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
My oldest murals are that old, and they still look like they were painted yesterday. But I'm well aware that buildings change, things disappear, and you just sort of have to expect that's part of the process. For a long time, I did sculpture that was temporary sculpture, especially in a public park in Worcester. That was a real challenge, because what I learned is the environment rules all, and human beings are part of the environment, and we are monkeys. We're built to move things, and you will move something until it breaks. That's just the way we're built. That's not even vandalism. That's just the way humans are wired. So I had to build my sculptures with an idea that I need to give them something safe to manipulate, so they don't break it in a way that kills a 2-year-old. My sister got to help me with one that could have killed 2-year-olds, because we had a very large totem display made of laundry bottles, and some local drunks took them completely down to the ground, and we had rebar sticking out of the ground, which is incredibly dangerous. And so we spent a day adding concrete, doubling up the rebar, restacking everything, and they survived the entire run. But I had to repair that sculpture 3 times. And as a result, learning about sculpture, one thing I learned, if you put something in the outer environment like that, don't make it look like a person. People take exception to their own image.
That is so true.
Wow.
Everything else has not been messed with, but that sculpture was messed with. The only other one that got messed with was in Atlanta, where I made an abstract mosaic, but the backing material was used CDs. And some bright soul got the idea of clipping all the CDs off and tried to turn them into a pawn shop. It had holes to build in them. So the pawn shop totally knew what was up. So that was a learning. Don't put something that people perceive as valuable in your recycled art project in an urban environment, because someone's going to try and take it to the pawn shop.
I think what I want to pop in with right now with all of this this vein of the conversation is that I think one thing with visual art and art in general, whatever type of art it is, it's such a universal element that people really respect it in the end. I do think, like you were saying, Sue, that there is a respect for people's efforts, and also, Mimi, like you said, if someone was able to, I feel that same way, if someone was able to walk away with it, like, I guess they really loved it and they really needed it in their life. And to speak of like the CDs, like that to me speaks further about what we as a society need to like pay attention to. Like if somebody clipped those CDs because they needed to sell something, because they needed money, like that says a lot about someone's own sense of like need and desire, that I would like to think that the people aren't vandalizing out of pure spite, but it talks about like, and one of the things I also like about this project, which when the artists were on before, we talked about, and something I've always feel like in my head I'm curious about with public art is like when it's not when money in a local community goes to people outside of the community for creating public works, I always feel a little bit on like, should I really apply for something that is not, I don't live there? And that was something that just came to me when we were talking before this actually officially started here, was that what I love about this project, and this is the first time I've seen many of these, the artists, I'm really grateful to be in this group of you, but that we all come from elsewhere. And this is a project in DC, which is such a focal point for our country, that it is like, oh, I can sort of claim DC as my region also, because so much happens in DC that affects me personally and my own community outside of DC, that it feels like a very, I don't know, I just feel like this project that was started and developed, and I don't know if the father and son is in this group who like initiated it, but like that on so many levels just like kept having more and more meaning for me personally.
Yeah, that's good.
I love that. It just, the project that keeps on giving, I guess. It is really interesting. I've always wondered how other artists feel about having their work out in the world. So it's fascinating to hear from all of you. And it sounds like we all kind of have the same sort of like, well, it's out there. You have to kind of expect the worst and just kind of deal with it as it comes and not take it too hard.
And the other thing, if I can add something really quick, sometimes you have this idea of, you put it out there, but so you don't understand how people are gonna react. Like it's there. I'm gonna do this because I want people to think this, but they can take it in a total different direction. And sometimes you're like, wow, I didn't know that this was actually, that this could be taken in this way or the other. So it's always a surprise, not just as far as, if people do something with it, but the way they perceive it, it's different.
That's so true. It is interesting. It's like the viewer creates the work in a certain sense too. It's like the work isn't really finished until it's out there and interacting with the public.
And the context is so important too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do we have any questions from anybody or anything like that? Any artists have any questions for each other since we're here, or any questions from anybody watching? I mean, I could blab on to you guys like pretty much all night because you're all fascinating and I love talking to you. But does anybody else want to jump in with anything?
Well, I have a
Yes,
suggestion.
this is Vanessa Ackham.
Oh, go ahead.
Hello.
Who's talking?
Yes, I'm curious about the next projects. What's on each artist's easel or throw pot, or what's on your easel?
Great question.
Good question. Yes. For me personally, it's like I think I said earlier, I really do want to enter more into the public art realm. So continuing to search for opportunities of that are available to me, and then also the immediate for me is because clay also it falls into like the craft world and the art world. I do make smaller sculptures, and hopefully with like the buying and holiday season coming up, maybe I have a few holiday sales I'll be part of, and then a few other exhibitions lined up that I'll have work in.
And do you have a kiln yourself?
I'm very fortunate. I do. My father also works in ceramics, and we inherited a kiln from a family friend who died, and then I have since been able to purchase with kilns.
I see. Wow, that is amazing to have a kiln to use yourself. And something that's been, I think, challenging for a lot of artists during this time is places like Shaw, which have all these great shared resources, are shut down. So it's that's awesome that you have that resource you're able to use. Does anybody else want to talk about work they have coming up?
Sure.
I was, sorry, really quick. I promised that I wasn't gonna talk anymore, but I need to share this so bad 2 minutes. My project is, I got commissioned by Shaw to make a tiny library. So I'm finished. It's gonna be up hopefully next week. Check it out.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Well,
I'm
what is the location of your mini library?
It's a Capitol Hill Arts Workshop. The place we've been 7 and G. So I'm good. We're gonna try to install it this weekend, and hopefully have an unveiling or something. So we'll see.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm so looking forward to seeing that. Well, like I said, I could easily keep you all here all night, but it's already after 6:30. So I'm gonna pass it back to Hannah, who's at least on my screen right there. And yeah, take it away, Hannah.
Thanks, Kate.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kate. Before we head into our little closing Mimi, did you want to add something?
Oh, I was gonna say I don't have stuff on my easel. I have it on my pedestal. You know? No, but I'm using this crazy time. I had a couple of shows lined up that got canceled, so it's kind of, so I'm just going crazy, making all kinds of weird stuff. Like my friends are like, I don't get it. You know?
Hey, that's how you know you're on the right track.
Yeah, I know. And I'm like, I think that's a good sign, you know? So it's just crazy out there stuff that I'm working on, just in case someone wants to know.
Love it. And Sue, I love what you've got there.
This is my bent metal project. So this is made out of a toilet paper tube, but it will become a big fish. Here's number 2. So you can see how they're put together. So that's my challenge to myself after I finish shipping about 10 pounds of plastic flowers to Worcester from Big Island. So I'm in the middle of a project right now. And when I finish, I'm going to mess around making fish out of tin cans, because I got a lot of tin cans lying around.
Wow.
Well, going from one fellow New Hampshire person to the other. Hello, I live in Lebanon.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for being here tonight. Kate, thank you for your wonderful facilitation. Truly, I could sit here for another several hours, and I might just sort of slip in here that I would love to do this again sometime if you all are up for it. This was so much fun. I learned so much, and I feel like I've been so inside of this project for so long. The alphabet animals for me are really, really meaningful on a personal level. This was one of the first projects I ever worked on out of school. And so to be able to still be here and to be engaging with you and to still be learning about it almost 10 years later and to still be learning from you, I think something that CHA has taught me and that CHA teaches often in the community is that when artists lead, we are all enriched as humans, and CHA really is a place that lets artists lead. And so thank you, artists. Thank you, Kate, as an artist, for all of your leadership, for everything that you do every day. It makes a really big difference. And thank you to everyone on this call and everyone watching after the fact, because you are also art supporters and you are making it possible for these artists to lead. So on behalf of CHA and this project, thank you, and looking forward to doing this again soon.
Thank you, Hannah. It's truly, truly my pleasure to be here and be on this call and to talk with all of you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. The website's in the chat box before you go, and we'll put it up as well for you to check out all of the animals and the map. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also to the board members that are here. It's been really, really great opportunity.